is Bold TV.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Bold TV, beautiful, outstanding ladies with disabilities television. We come to you every Saturday by 10:30 a.m. and we bring conversations around disability and its related issues. Today, I have with me amazing women who are going to bring a very interesting topic or conversation, to the table. And I want you to put your ears on the ground. Before we start, we'd like to mention that if you have missed our past episodes, you can go and check them out on our Facebook page, and that is at www.facebook.com/Bold Heart Network. If you're on YouTube, check out our YouTube channel, and that's at www.youtube.com/@BoldTV_Bold Heart. You can get the exciting topics in the past that we've had great women come to have conversations about, and even today's topic. So go ahead, call somebody to call somebody. It's time for Bold TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So like I said, if you are in Nigeria, you would have heard a recent incident around discrimination that happened to a person with disability. And just in case you haven't heard, I will give you a background to that. And that brings us to our topic of conversation today. And our topic of conversation is discrimination, a daily pill for persons with disabilities. Discrimination, a daily pill for persons with disabilities. Now, before I go ahead and give you any background, I'd just like to quickly let you know the ladies that are with me today to have this conversation. With me, we have a repeating guest. She's been with us on Bold TV on multiple episodes. No other person than Barrister Florence Marcus. Say hi.
Hi, listeners. Thank you, Bold TV, for having me this afternoon. Thank you. This morning.
You are most welcome. Yeah, morning. You are welcome. So, Barrister Florence Marcus is based in Abuja. She's also an amputee. That's that is her identifier as a woman with disability. With me are my repeated co-hosts. We are always here every Saturday, and introducing Oluwatomisin Olatayo. Tomisin is visually impaired, and she is a mother of one. She's also, her CV is very long. She reels it out on every Saturday. So if you want to find out more, you can check out past episodes. Tomisin, on me and say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So she's in Abiyokuta. And we also have Afyong Edson. Afyong is a lab scientist. She's based in Uyo, the capital of Akwa Ibom State. And she identifies as a woman with disability using a wheelchair from spinal cord injury. Please say hi.
How Nade? Good morning.
So we did. And she just told you how Nade. That's the pidgin English we speak over here for those who are lost from America. So my name is Fretty Andrew Estienne. I'm based in Port Harcourt in River State, and I identify as a woman with disability because I use a wheelchair from spinal cord injury. And I'm bringing you as a host for today's episode, discrimination, a daily pill for persons with disabilities. So, background of the story: something happened in Nigeria, specifically at Murtala Mohammed Airport. On the 27th of March 2024. So what happened was that a young man by name Demola Daniel was in transit. So he had bought his ticket, was headed to London, and had to wait in the lounge. The lounge he normally waits for, not accessible because the elevator was not working. So he headed to KFC, where he, his wife, and his brother and the wife were to wait. Not just waiting, but they according to the story that he posted on X, was that they were going to get their lunch and still stay there and wait while they were there for their flight. And then something happened. To take it on, I'd like to just read from some excerpts from the statement that Demola himself posted on X, and he says this. These are his words verbatim. He says that today he felt less than human. He felt like a guard dog, and he was not allowed into the place that he wanted to go to. I really want to read from his story, so give me a second and I'll pull it out. Okay, so he says, today I felt less human, like a guard dog, not allowed into the house, lonely and isolated. Those are the feelings that he got. So Debola Daniel, son of former Ogun State Governor Otumba Benga Daniel, brought to light an alarming incident where he was denied access to KFC, a KFC branch in Lagos. Like I said, it was at Murtala Mohammed branch in Lagos, where he reportedly was not allowed to enter into the premises, where the manager on duty yelled from her station, the restaurant manager, no wheelchairs allowed. According to his story, he says that he entered into there and he wanted to just get a meal, wait there, and he has a question. He said, so my question to KFC is simple. Does this represent your approach to persons with disabilities or customers, or will you be looking into this? Now, from that 27th of March, the responses have been many. Many dailies took it to heart. They published the story. There has even been a response from KFC where they said categorically that the response of the restaurant manager was not representative of the policies that they have for persons with disabilities. They also made an apology. He made him like an apology. There's been so many responses. LASODA in Lagos, as the Lagos State Disability Affairs, has also spoken to it. Because just in case you do not know, Lagos State is one of the states who has, in fact, a law that protects against persons with disabilities. Now in existence for 13 years. Another group is the Nigerian Commission of Persons with Disabilities. So many, and in fact, the House Committee on Disabilities, plenty investigation currently happening. They want to look at if it is representative of KFC, whatever, or if it is just an issue of a staff being unaware or disability insensitive. So ladies, I won't even repeat the story because we know the story. We have heard, except you're living under a rock, you have heard the story and you've heard what happened because the reactions have been interesting. Or basically a young man entered into a restaurant with his wife and family to buy food, and the restaurant manager from her duty station yelled, no wheelchairs allowed. You know what made this thing interesting to me was the fact that they actually left and they went to another place to go and wait. And just to know whether this thing was real, they said his wife and his brother went back just to hear if the woman was certain about it. And she said yes, that she's even just posted to this branch, and as far as she knows, like KFC, they don't allow wheelchairs. So she was very adamant, so sure of herself. Now, ladies, in our introduction, or in me introducing us, one of the key things is the fact that we all identify as women with disabilities. And I captioned this discrimination, a daily pill for PWDs. I just want to hear your general reactions on this story before I come and ask specific questions. How do you feel? Or what's your own personal reaction? When you heard this story, what came to your mind? What was the first thing that came to your mind?
Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak on this issue. I think I read the issue, I read this matter just few hours after the incident. And for me, as a person with disability, I was not surprised. I was not surprised because this is not the first time that issues like this have happened to us, to me personally, and to people that I know. But what really intrigued me is the personality involved. And my reaction was, finally, people will hear and talk about issues of discrimination. Because in Nigeria, we are fond of not really dealing with the issue, but dealing with personalities. If someone like Florence had posted that, probably I wouldn't have gotten the responses that the son of a former governor was able to get. If someone from my village had posted that, probably nobody would have even read or taken him serious. Rather, he would have been criticized or for making a mountain out of a molehill, because they'll feel, oh, what did they do? You should have just changed the place. But I was happy, and the reactions and the responses have really confirmed, my thoughts at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence, for your response to that. Let me ask Affion, when you heard about this case, what was your immediate thought? What flew through your mind? What was your immediate reaction?
The first thing I was like, wow. So things like this still happen. I'm just shocked because I don't remember when I don't understand how a business that is making money, off of human beings would, suddenly decide whose money is acceptable and whose money is not. Number one, it doesn't make sense to me. And like Florence said, the next thought that came to my mind almost immediately was that, yes, thank God it was not a nobody that it happened to. That, if probably, like when you had that incident in Ghana, the airline and all that, that probably if it was just anybody else, it wouldn't garner the kind of reactions and outrage that it got. So I'm just glad that finally, that this thing has finally crossed the divide and, gotten to the other side. So somebody will actually take note. Because most of these things happen in so many places, you complain, even those in authority don't respond as they should. Just because, these things happen. But thank God this has finally crossed the divide, and I believe that hopefully things will become different going forward.
Yes, it has crossed the divide. I wonder what side of the divide we are, but what I'm trying to say is that is that it has happened and it has touched where it needed to be heard. So, if you're there, let's just hear your reactions, and then I'll just speak to one or two things about this issue.
So, like you said in the topic, it's a daily pill. I mean, it's something that goes around with persons with disabilities every day in Nigeria. And of course, it had to take someone prominent, a two-time governor, a senator, is currently a senator, that's the father. It had to touch them, reach them at their bus stop, at their doorstep before, a lot of us started seeing it as an issue. And for me, it somehow looks like hypocrisy when we assume or when we neglect what we are supposed to do on the basis of, consign me. We forget that this thing called disability is no respecter of anyone, if it be you. And so when you have that privilege, when you have that opportunity to make striking changes, it's better we go ahead and just do it. The very first time I read this news, I just sat down and I was recounting how many places I have been denied entry, how many places I have had to struggle my way through because I feel that I should be here. This is a public facility, regardless of whether I cannot see or not, regardless of whether I'm with an aid or not, I should be allowed here. And look at all that drama that you have to go with, all the emotional trauma you had to go with. But we are having the conversation. And I'm hoping that organizations, businesses, private bodies will no longer continue to, treat disability matters from the angle of disdain, from that angle of, demeaning charity. Imagine you want to go into a restaurant and the security it should be this one is manager. I remember there was one that happened to me. It was the security. It was in Ekiti. I'd gone for a youth conference in Ekiti and I was famished. I couldn't wait any longer for them to serve dinner. And the security denied me access. When I continued to struggle, I want to go in and buy food. They had to go and call me a lady from the counter to come and take my orders outside. And I refused. And so we had a lot of back and forth drama. I did later buy the food because at the end of the day, that disrespect just got to me and, I became very emotional. But like I said, we are heading somewhere. And with conversations like this also on Bold TV, we will definitely be very one day. Thank you.
Awesome. Tommy saying maybe you should have gone to Twitter and put your displeasure. Just kidding. So one of the reasons why all of a sudden people are like, this disability thing, why it is like almost brain scratching is this. And I want to speak to what the young man actually said. He said that before now, he's always had a laissez-faire attitude towards things like this, meaning that let's go and let's leave. Like anytime he had ever experienced anything like that, he would just be like, I beg, and he would just choose. And these are in his own words. That was his attitude and his approach towards things like this. He never ever followed up or confronted, but somehow this happened, and it was like something happened, something broke, within him. And this brings me back to us here. We know that in Nigeria, a lot of times, persons with disabilities experience discrimination as a daily pill. We also know that in January of 2019, it was signed into law, the Disability Discrimination Act. It's a known thing that happened for all Nigeria. I think my question would be this. What should be our general attitude as persons with disabilities when we are faced with discrimination? Do we have to continue to shy away? What should be the response of persons with disabilities when we are faced with discrimination? If we tell our stories, there are so many. Well, what do you think should be our general reaction, or should I say response, when we are faced with discrimination?
Okay, before the passage of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act 2018, when a person with disability is discriminated upon, it may be difficult to go to court to prove discrimination before a court. But with the passage of that law, persons with disability, in fact, Section 1 of that law prohibits discrimination. And in law, where there is a right, there is a remedy. So where your right is breached, where you are discriminated upon as a person with disability, it means that you can go to court, institute an action, and then you will get remedies for that breach. So as a person with disabilities, there are rights that are entrenched in that law. In fact, even before the inception of that law, we have the Constitution. Issues of discrimination are not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution, but they are there. But there are other rights that are in the Constitution that if you feel as a person with disabilities that these rights are infringed upon, you can go to court. I know that a lot of people will say, no, our judiciary, this, we don't have confidence in judiciary and all of that. But we have to test the waters. We have to give it a try. How many of us have gone to court and did not get justice? Even if every other person had gone to court and did not get justice, you yourself can be the first person to try it. Then, another issue is that, yes, we have had, public hearing here and there, press conferences. Those are not the issues. We must have lasting solutions. And for me, I'm not just talking, yes, I'm talking as a lawyer, that I feel that the lasting solution is to go to court. By the time we start having judicial precedents, let's use KFC for example, that somebody can cite the case of Demola Daniels against KFC and say, okay, this was what happened, relating it to his case. And there is no how the judge would not give you judgment for that case. So we have to give it a try. Don't sit down and have a lesser fair interest like what Demola said in his response. No, we have to see, rights are not just given, they are taken. You have to take the steps that you need in order to claim your rights. Then another thing we have to do is that as persons with disabilities, we need to speak out. It took the voice of Demola to be able to get all these responses and these reactions. We have people like him. Where has it been all this while? Because he is privileged, probably he has not, had several issues like that. But there are people who have these issues on a daily basis. There are people who are still even denying, to accept disability and to identify as persons with disabilities. Probably their reaction Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we'll be hearing you.
But possibly, if all hands are put on deck by persons with disability, no matter your status, no matter your standing in the society, come out. Let's agree. There are people who are hiding it. Some of them are even in the Senate, they are ministers and all of that. Come out and let's fight this together. By the time we fight this together, we'll be able to entrench these laws. We'll be able to change the society and make the society inclusive for all. You may not be doing it for yourself, but you may be doing it for that person with disability who is not as privileged as you are. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Florence. Thank you. You spoke to two very important things, and you said the first one was testing the law. Yes, we have the law. We actually have it too, as opposed to before when we didn't even have anything to fall back on. So we have something. So she's saying, let's pick up courage, have knowledge of what our rights are, and begin to exercise that muscle of using the law. And then she said something that is very important. She talked about having the voice, the ability to raise one's voice, to speak against issues of discrimination. That second point is so crucial, because if you don't even speak in the first place, nobody actually really knows what you're going through. And it's interesting, and I'd like to mention this, that even within the disability communities, I've heard people say, why are they making so much noise? And these are fellow persons with disabilities. And sometimes I wonder, if we are not the ones going to make noise about issues of discrimination, then for crying out loud, who is going to come and talk about it? I remember when Grace had an issue with the airline and her wheelchair was dismantled. And not because she could not solve the problem, but it had been happening and she just got fed up of buying one pedal or the other, and she told them, she put it to them, and they were going to get her a new wheelchair. It made the news round. Believe it or not, a person with disability came and was inside my DM and was like, why is she shouting so much? Can't she buy another wheelchair? And I was like, that's not the issue. Trust me, that's not the point. They've been doing it and doing it, so let there be a learning point. And they bought the wheelchair. Now, tell me why that airline will not gather themselves when they see a person in a wheelchair and gather the chair very well so that they will not be buying wheelchair per second. Sometimes, we just, because we can afford or we cannot, so we don't make it our problem. I've seen that happen quite a bit. So let me just ask Apion, just add to that, what can we do in issues of discrimination? What else can persons with disabilities do?
Okay, number one, know your rights first. If you don't even know what your rights are, then you can't even go and be telling somebody you know when those rights have been violated. Know your rights first. Next time, it might not be something as overt as being denied access. It may in most cases, something very subtle that you may not even recognize that, oh, I am actually entitled to this, but it's being denied. It may look like it's a general thing, but it's not really taken into account. There was a time I remember at work where somebody, we had, in fact, there's a WhatsApp group that we have in my place of work for people from a certain cadre upwards. And, they usually have meetings every week, once a week. And usually, those meetings are held upstairs in the office of the overall person. And, they put me in the WhatsApp group, and each time, I had complained, I would complain and tell them that, look, I'm not able to attend this meeting because number one, I don't come to work very early like that. And secondly, where the meeting is held, you people do not take into account the fact that I should be part of that meeting. So you just feel, don't worry, since you cannot come, just, so that kind of like, it may not look like more. People will be like, you can't go for the meeting, it's not a problem, don't bother. But the fact that we're not even considered, because I believe if one of them, if it was let's say, for example, if the overall person had been affected, probably they would have made a change in venue, but this has never been considered. It doesn't look like much, but I see it as a subtle form of discrimination. They don't feel that my opinion matters enough for me to be present. They do not insist that I should be present. Okay, I now said, okay, since the venue is upstairs and for whatever reason you cannot change it, how about ensuring that you post on the group? We have a WhatsApp group. Why not, somebody take notes, get minutes, and then maybe put it up on the group so that those who are not available, not just me, those who are not able to attend the meeting for one reason or the other, know what went on and can lend their voice. Because there are certain times you will come to make decisions, and that decision will also influence me. So why not put it up on I said it so many times. They will keep saying, oh, they forgot. Oh, somebody was appointed to do it. Oh, the person did not do it. They kept, going back and forth. I just went to the exit button and I exited myself. And I'm waiting for when they will tell me to come and contribute money. And I'm telling them, oh, sorry, I don't belong to this group. Until you people acknowledge that I'm a bona fide member of this group, then I cannot be expected to contribute. It doesn't make sense. I kept repeating my request, meeting individuals, even the person in charge told her, look, this is the situation. I believe that I'm a valid member of this group by reason of my status, and I believe that I can be useful. Whatever decisions people will come to, I can also contribute. But since you don't think, my contributions are valuable and it is not necessary, so I don't want to be there. I'm not a museum artifact, just come and hang around. So that was the situation like that. So I just exited myself from the group and stepped aside. And they were like, the other day, somebody called me, that they said people should contribute money for this. So since I was not there, I said, I don't know, I didn't know about it. So I'm just hearing about it. Sorry, my budget has already closed. Budget allocation has closed. So there's nothing, I don't have anything to do. Now they know my number and can call me personally. Sister, sorry, I know they. Well, that's the case. So know your rights first, so that when somebody discriminates against you, you can recognize it. And then secondly, don't say, what will I do now? Florence said, speak up. Please say it there and then, as it is hot. Say it there and then, that this is not right. When you have aired your views, when you have told them and probably informed them of your rights, and they do not take appropriate measures to remedy the situation, then you can now go further.
All right, thank you very much. So Afyon has said two key things. She talked about know your rights, and she spoke to an experience that she had in a group where discrimination was very subtle. She said know your rights helps you to identify discrimination even when it is not as obvious as what happened to the young man's story that we shared earlier today. And she said also in knowing your rights, you're able to vocalize what it is that you are complaining or speaking against. So my question is this. We have the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act of 2018. It is in its fifth year. There are provisions, there are fines, all sorts of things in that law. You pick a group and speak to that group about how they can prevent disability discrimination, promote inclusion.
Okay, so for me, a particular division or provision I'll be speaking to will be access to public facilities. When something is called public facilities, it means that whether you're a man, a woman, young, old, person with disability, person without disability, rich, poor, whatever status it is, whatever demography you fall into, you have equal and equitable access to such a facility. So in a place where restaurants, playgrounds, banks even, I still see people who use wheelchair stay outside bank facilities to be attended to in 2024. And so it means
with
that
your money.
yes, so with your money. And these are public facilities, government buildings. You still find out that I was at the ministry sometime in November with some other women with disabilities. Quite unfortunately, those of us who were visually impaired were the only ones who could participate in that meeting. Those on wheelchair, those using wheelchair, could not participate. They just stood downstairs waiting for us to come back and feed them back what we discussed. So it means that efforts, it's not enough to say we have an act. It's not enough for states to be saying, let us see how we can demo. It's time that we move away from that charity, demeaning charity way of handling inclusion and be sincere towards actually making our environment inclusive.
Awesome. Let me jump to Florence. And in adding to that, you can speak to a group, but I want you to talk a little also, remember brief, this state domestication, what are the implications?
Disability is on the concurrent list, meaning that both the federal and the states can act on it. So the Disability Act that is passed by the federal government that was assented to by President Muhammadu Buhari, it's only applicable in the FCT. So states are also supposed to make similar laws in their state. That's why what is called the one in the one passed by the National Assembly is an act, but the states make laws, similar laws relating to disabilities. As it is today, I don't know the exact number of states that have passed similar laws, but I know that the number is coming up gradually. But some states are still very adamant. As for the Demola state, I don't even know whether his father, while he was the governor of that state, was able to pass it, because the law had been in existence since that time.
For free, don't pay money. No.
Okay. So we see what
that was signed by Senator Ibikunle Amosu in Ogun State. At this administration, we've been clamoring for implementation, and the language we keep hearing is that law is a dirty bill. I have never heard of the word dirty bill before. And so Ogun State is back to the House of Assembly, where we are pushing forth another bill to protect rights of persons with disabilities. I've never heard of the word dirty bill before. I'm hearing it from the first time under this administration. So we don't have a law.
So if it is dirty, they should clean it up and pass it, because that is one. So the lack of political will by our leaders, even though they have relatives, they have their families, who are also affected by disabilities. Unfortunately, some of them may not escape disability in their lifetime. So we need political will to ensure that this act is passed, because the people who suffer the most are not the people in the FCT. There are people in the rural areas. There are persons with disabilities who are voiceless, who have been shut up, by the discrimination. Even when they are discriminated upon by even their family members, nobody can hear about them. So the state must, and persons with disabilities, not just persons with disabilities, everyone must ensure that we advocate for the passage of this law, because the passage of this law will be beneficial to everyone.
Yes, you've answered the question, and it's important for even actors in the disability community to begin to know these things, because I don't think a lot of people know. And the fact that some states, like even rebel states, claim to have laws that are obsolete is an indication that it's one thing to have a law, and then it's a whole different conversation for the implementation of that law. And establishing of disability commissions that are independent, I think, is one of the best ways to go. Best routes, at least we have seen with the NCPWD, that can begin to push for laws not just being pieces of paper or articles on the internet, but actually affecting the lives of persons.
So it's not just about even passing the law. Let's talk about the implementation of the law. See, when we have this law and we don't implement the law, it will be as worthless as the paper on which these laws are written on. So we must not just advocate for the passage of the law, but we must advocate for those states that have the law to implement the law to the latter. There are a lot of provisions, and most of these provisions, I see discrimination, cutting across all the provisions. If a person with disability, if they say, okay, we should reserve at least, let's not just be saying we should reserve 5%, because that's not what the law said. The law said at least 5% employment in the public service for persons with disabilities. If persons with disabilities are denied employment, it also goes down to section 1, which is discrimination. If there is no access, because the issue sometimes is not even about the discrimination, it's the subtle discrimination. When you deny a person with disability access, or your facility is not accessible, that's physical accessibility and even procedural accessibility or communication accessibility, it is discrimination against persons with disabilities. So let's continue. We have to boycott even some of these services and some of these things when it comes to real advocacy. Thank you.
Awesome. So there's a lot to be done. And Afyong, I would like you to speak to a sector, and of course, KFC is a business and it's in the private sector. And I've seen a great lack of interest, or should I say concern. Sometimes it feels as if when we're talking about issues of discrimination, and we tend to come back to government, but just speak a bit to people that own private enterprises, shops, but still will provide public services. What can they be doing to do? Go ahead, Afyong.
Okay. To be very honest, sometimes I don't blame them. Why? Because if even government, so-called government enterprises, government parastatals, government buildings are not, this is 5 years down the line, like you said. And these laws about, they said, buildings must, all private and public buildings must restructure to be able to give access to people with disabilities. How many have done so? Even, places like hospitals that are key and play vital roles don't have, are not accessible. So most people in the private sector, they take liberties because they feel they have a precedence in the government institution. Because if governments, are leading by example and showing the way and making sure that they, in all their parastatals are restructured to create accessibility for persons with disabilities, I believe people in the private sector will sit up. Because by the time you take someone to court or complain about it, the person will have no choice, because you will have a precedent that, look, government facilities are accessible. Why is yours not the same? So, but that does not excuse them. Persons in the private sector, this law cuts across every aspect. So I believe that they can also start, not wait for government or any other person. If your place of business, depending on what it's like, you can start with small changes.
All right, thank you very much, Afyong. I want to speak about negative attitudes, because I have seen where organizations actually do a lot for persons with disabilities, but for some reason, the human beings that are there are misrepresenting organizations. I'm not saying that that's what happened in this incident, where because if you look at the antecedents, you can see that they are saying, no, it's not our policy, and they're trying to maybe now hang the scapegoat and say, no, it's that woman and all that. So what would you say about individuals? Because one of the barriers that a lot of persons with disabilities face is negative attitude that comes from a lot of misconceptions. And of course, it is individuals that make institutions, it is individuals that make society, it is individuals that make up government, it is individuals that make up these businesses. So in just one word, what would be your response to individuals now with attitudes and all sorts of responses that they have when it comes to issues of disability? Florence, go ahead, please. On mute.
Yes, the disability did not just talk about government. The Disability Act is punitive because the Disability Act has also provided penalty for breach of these provisions, both by government, both by companies, and also by individuals. There are some penalties where the breach is carried out by an individual. So don't think that you are safe when you discriminate or when you breach the provisions of this act. If you are an individual, there is a penalty that you pay if you are found to have breached the provisions. See, our attitude really matters, but see, let's start even from the home. Make your home accessible. Sorry, the Disability Act is not only about accessibility. We are just talking about accessibility because it is one of the provisions that is always breached. If your house, I've visited a very prominent Nigerian, and he told me, Florence, I can no longer go to my bedroom. I now use the guest room. You can imagine, he cannot access his own bedroom, as prominent as he is, with all the PAs and everyone around him, because the house was not well built. The house was not built, with accessibility in mind. And if you are working, if you're in the company like KFC, you cannot say that because this was done by our manager. Where is vicarious liability? The company will be liable for her act if she's found to have done it in the event of in the course of her duty and all of that. So the company should have policies that are inclusive to ensure that their managers, they can hold the manager responsible. I don't think KFC will even allow that lady to continue. So that should serve as an example to other people, both individuals, both companies, and even the government itself.
Spoken like a lawyer. So now you know that the Discrimination Act actually covers penalties as it affects individuals, it affects companies, it affects the government. So me say, what would you say to individuals who generally have negative attitudes and perpetrate discrimination against persons with disabilities?
I would come in from the angle of human nature. There's a verse in the scripture that says, wisdom is profitable to direct. So even if you are at a company, even if you work for an organization, or it's just you as a person, apply wisdom in whatever we do. Seek knowledge, seek clarifications. If you do not know how to handle persons with disabilities, do not come at us with all your negative emotions, because we also have negative emotions we want to unleash. And so when you unleash your own negative emotions, we meet you up with another negative emotion. You say persons with disabilities are aggressive, not knowing that we should also apply wisdom in our attitude. Forget not that anybody can be caught in the web of disability. Thank you.
All right. So she said, deal with people with understanding. Where you do not know, ask, seek clarity on how you can interact with the person. Do not make assumptions. All right, Afion, quickly.
Always question what you know. If there's anything I have come to know, whatever you think you know, and whatever you think you've always believed, question it. Because situations will come where things will, it doesn't line up with what you've always been told. Many of us have been made to think that persons with disabilities are beggarly, persons with disabilities don't have talent, they are not even human beings, they don't deserve respect. And then you see a person with disability, number one, well-dressed, presents themselves well, speaks well, is educated. That will challenge whatever paradigm is in your head. That will challenge whatever belief you have always had. It is only common sense for you to stop and ask, why is this one different? So question what you know. And if possible, if there's any confusion, feel free to approach the person and talk to them. How can I help you? What can I do? It's basic human decency. That lady could have found a way, even if at the cost of her job, could have said, okay, this is not right. You know, even if you work somewhere, there are policies you should be able to challenge as a human being, as an individual. That look, this is not right. Basic human decency. The person comes and you're like, how can I help? Is there anything I can do? Normally, the company does not allow this, but I cannot stand aside and watch you. You should not be able to be comfortable in the face of injustice. It's basic human decency. That's all I can say. Let's leave policies and all. Let's start from the humanness, our humanness. That's what affects all of us.
Thank you, Afio. Let us start from humanness. Everybody, humanness. We should all be treated with respect. We should be treated with dignity. And that you do not have a disability does not mean that you cannot be a voice in that space. If there is no person with disability to question, should there be a policy that is inhumane? You could be a voice of reason that brings back humanity back to some of these policies that may not make sense. Should they exist? Now, for me, what I'm going to add is this. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. I actually do not even personally care if they say it's federal law, whatever law. It's not something that I'm particularly interested in. Just, these are human beings. You serve the public. It is important that you do right by the public, the dynamic public that you serve. You can provide a universal design that accommodates everyone or reasonable accommodation per time as people come with different needs. It is something that you should expect if you are offering a public service. You must do disability sensitivity training. It's something that you cannot run away from. And when I say people are like, I'm like, yes, because some people already have some notions about disability, and their notions are shrouded in all sorts of cultural misconceptions, spiritual misconceptions. So you need to begin to break down those walls and rebuild them frequently, because you can have fantastic policies, but the individuals there are almost wow. Having said that, I thank everybody that rose up and is still rising up to speak and join their voices. But let us see the end of this thing affecting over 30 million persons with disabilities who live in Nigeria. Okay? Because disability, as they said, is not a respecter of persons. It affects everyone, both those in rural, urban, middle class, upper class, lower class, no class. If a person has disability, the law should not be segregated or should not be sectional. All right, ladies. We've said a lot on this gist. We have bashed people, we have advised people, we have encouraged people, and it's been an interesting one. It is a daily pill for persons with disability discrimination. Sometimes we get it subtly, sometimes we get it hoo-ha, people don't care, but we face it. And the world now knows. We will continue to hear, we will continue to know. We will share stories, and we pray that justice is served. All right, thank you, Florence. Thank you, Thomason, and thank you, Afyon, for weighing in on this crucial story, a very important conversation, doing the rounds at this time in our dearly beloved country, Nigeria. People have seen that our laws are not being put into implementation, and maybe with this, a little bit more pressure will come in. And we also ask state governors, let's arise. Let's do right by the citizens in our states that are persons with disabilities and domesticate laws where they are not, and where laws exist, please, for crying out loud, to implement them. Those who still do not have an independent disability affairs commission, it is time to have one. So until we come your way, same time, Saturday, 10:30 a.m. with another interesting conversation, do check out our Facebook page, do check out our YouTube channel, and let's hear from you as well. Write to us, boldheartnetwork@info@gmail.com. So until we see you, take care. Do not be a perpetrator of abuse. Do not discriminate against persons with disabilities. Ladies, unmute and tell them we love you, we appreciate you. Bye.
No find trouble. No find trouble.
Tell you we love you, we appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is Bold TV.